Hey guys, welcome back here to the Fishing Teacher. Appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to hang with me a little bit. And guys, today we're gonna have another video on hook sets. Sort of in preparation for the spring season coming up, sort of get you guys tuned up a little bit on it, because hook sets are critical to land the majority of the bites you get. If you don't have the correct hook set based upon different type of lures that you're using, it's gonna cost you a lot of fish. And I've learned this the hard way, guys, because I've lost a ton of fish in my bass fishing career, and a lot of it was due to improper hook sets. So what I want to do is I want to sort of go over how I set the hook with some spinning rods and some bait cast rods and slow baits and moving baits, and get you guys set up on that. I really think it's going to help out a lot. And also, guys, real quick, in preparation for spring season coming up, if you're looking for a good bait cast reel, guys, check out this Lew's Custom Pro here. You've probably heard me talking about before. I absolutely love this reel. I'll put it in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video if you guys would like to use my link to get one. 11 ball bearings, man, smooth as butter. It's a super attractive reel. That's the prettiest color I've ever seen on a reel. And I just love it. I've been using it since last fall, and I still have not got a backlash with it. It's the first reel I've ever had where I haven't backlashed, and I got it coupled up with this Mega Bass Destroyer rod here. So I'll have everything in the Tackle Warehouse link there, and really appreciate that. Okay, guys, let's get into this hook setting thing here. I think there's a big misconception with hook sets. A lot of people think that there's one hook set fits all, and that hook set is that you make your cast out there and you're working your bait and you get the strike and you reel down and you set the hook like that. That's how you see everybody do it. Or let's say, for example, you're throwing a crankbait out there, you're reeling your crankbait through the water, you get a strike, and boom, they just set the hook real hard. That's how the majority of people, set the hook. I'm trying to adjust my camera here, guys. I got a new camera mount. I'm getting not quite used to it yet. So let's go through how you want to set the hook with different lure categories. First of all, let's talk about, something like a plastic worm here or a jig. Plastic worm or jig, it's the same hook set, or any type of lure that's on the bottom. Now, one of the things that you don't want to do on a lure like a worm or jig is you don't want to set the hook on a slack hook set, on a slack line, and you don't set it hard. Because what happens is a lot of times a fish comes up and grabs this bait like this, okay? And then you fail the strike. If you reel down and jack that fish on a slack line and set it hard, especially if you're not very far away from the fish, a lot of times the force of that hook set will just pop that fish's mouth open like that. And the fish doesn't have the bait very far back in its mouth, and the force of that popping it on a slack line will pop that mouth open and the bait will just shoot out. That's why a lot of times, think about the times that you've set the hook on a fish before, like on a worm or jig, and you got the fish on and you reel it for a couple cranks and then it comes off. That's exactly what happened. I'm not saying that doesn't work, because, you can jack them on a slackline hook set and you're going to land quite a few of the fish that you get, but you're not going to land the maximum amount of fish. It's the difference. What I'm going to show you guys is going to increase the number of bass that you get in the boat by, versus the number of bites you get by 10 to 20%. So that's definitely worth making an adjustment. So here's how you want to set the hook with a bait cast rod or spinning rod, for a matter of fact, on a slow bait. Okay, you make your cast out there. You're working the bait. It doesn't matter if it's a spinning rod or bait caster. You're working that bait, and it's like, boom, you feel the strike. You got a fish on. First of all, don't get in a big hurry. It's like a lot of people will set the hook and they say, oh, he must have spit it out. They don't do that, guys. If it's a decent fish, like a fish over 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, you can't hardly shake them off. They're going to swim 30 or 40 foot out, and they're most of the time they'll swallow it. They won't even spit it out, they'll just swallow it. So you don't have to get in a big hurry. So what you want to do is you cast it out there, you're working your bait like this, you get the strike, and just tell yourself, okay, there's a strike. Watch your line swim out, and let your line swim out 4 or 5 feet. I'm talking about let it swim that far with it. Just let your line go out like that. And as the line's swimming out, what you want to do is reel down and tighten up your line. So your rod tip is pointed right at the line, and your line's tight. And when your line's tight, you want to start reeling and just pull back like that. And keep reeling. Don't stop. Because number one is when you're reeling and you're pulling into that fish, you're driving the point of that hook further and further and further into that fish, and you're not jacking and popping that fish's mouth open by setting the hook hard. That is the key way to fish. I don't care if you're fishing it on a spinning rod or bait caster, either one. Okay, now let's talk about a moving bait. You know, moving baits are a little bit different. Now, this is something like a spinner bait. It can be a crankbait. It could be a swim bait. Anything that you're reeling through the water column. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made in my fishing career with things like spinner baits and chatter baits and crankbaits is I set the hook like a live nerve ending. So I'll be throwing it out there and I'll be reeling my spinner bait through the water or my crankbait, and it's like, boom, I get a strike, and it's like I set the hook like as soon as I feel the strike, it's just like instinctively my rod goes back like that. One of the things that's going to help you land a lot more fish on a moving bait is, number one, you have got to be prepared for that strike every single cast in order to do this. If you're not prepared and expecting a strike, you're going to set the hook like that instinctually. So if you're prepared, let's say I make a cast out there and it's like, okay, I'm going to get one this cast, and you're reeling halfway back, boom, you get the strike, you're expecting the strike. Same thing, guys. As soon as you get that strike, just take a step back and pull your rod and just start reeling. The same thing, except on a moving bait, it's usually a little bit more sideways. So it'd be like this, coming and reel it sideways like that, and just keep reeling. It's the same thing. It's like, number one is by not setting the hook instantly like that, there's a split second, just a nanosecond, where the fish will get that bait, usually a treble hook, a little bit further back in their mouth instead of just jerking it like that. So you're reeling and pulling back like that. And then at the same time, when the fish realizes it's hooked, it's going to start struggling and going into a different way. And when you're reeling and pulling like that, just, steady pressure, you keep driving those hooks again, the treble hook points into the fish a little bit further, and they can't get loose. And another thing that's important after you set the hook is what you do for about the first 5 or 10 seconds after you set the hook. And what you have to do is you want to get the head of that fish headed towards you. So this is why when you reel back on the fish, you really want to put a lot of pressure. You don't have to reel 100 miles an hour, but pull that rod back and really make sure that you're putting a lot of pressure on it, and try to get that fish's head headed straight to you. You don't want that fish to go in some type of an opposite direction. And if it does, you don't want to put pressure on it, and you don't want to try to turn it real hard. So in other words, let's say, you hook this fish and it's, 30 or 40 foot out in front of the boat, and you're reeling it, and all of a sudden you're fighting it down past the boat, and it goes past the boat. Don't try to turn it around to shift the direction of the fish, because you're going to reverse the position of that hook and pop it out. What you want to do is try to follow the fish around the boat if you can. And if the fish goes out into the open water, do not put much pressure on it. Just let the fish go out there. Just push your thumb bar or, back reel on your spinning outfit. Let the fish go out there, and when it finally stops and starts to turn, reel it up and get it coming back into you. But you always want the head of that fish going to you if you can, simply because to keep that hook in good position. You're not going to lose near the fish with that. And another thing that I'll tell you guys is you don't have to set the hook very hard. Probably the most fish, the harder I set the hook, the more fish I lose. And I learned this the hard way, and it took me a long time to learn it. I always felt that when I lost fish, it was because of some other variable, like I had the wrong hook or it wasn't sharp enough or something. But I finally realized it was my hook set. And I was setting the hook too hard. Some of the most consistent guys that I know that never lose fish, they set the hook so light you wonder how the fish even got hooked with them. Gary Yamamoto, if you guys don't know him, he invented the Senko. And Gary was a top-level tournament competitor forever. He won the U.S. Open. He won several tournaments. He won a Bassmaster Open I was in. And I've watched him a lot. And when he's fishing a Senko, let me show you how he sets the hook. I've seen him do it 100 times. He'll throw it out there, and he's working the Senko, and all of a sudden, he just starts reeling like that. And he's reeling in, and he's got a fish on. It's like, literally, it's like this. He's working like that, starts reeling in like this. He doesn't even set the hook. He just reels it in, and he never loses them. And I've seen a lot of different guys do that. So anyway, that's just some experiences I've had setting the hook, guys. Give that a try. I think it's going to help you guys land a lot more fish. So we'll talk later.